Good evening. And thank you all for coming to my book launch here at the wonderful Phoenix Theatre in Ross. So we're going to talk about two books that I've published on Amazon. So it's self-publishing. The Alienation of Ludovic Weiss and His Cat and Other Strange Tales. So chat about His Cat and Other Strange Tales first, if I may. I've been writing that for several years because it's a collection of short stories. What I call macabre short stories, and as you'll gather from strange tales. And here's the wonderful book cover that my friend Sheila Sloan prepared for me. That's got some good press already, and some nice feedback. So if you like M.R. James or E.F. Benson, possibly Roald Dahl, I think you would like His Cat and Other Strange Tales. 15 stories, some longer than others, all a jolly good read. Now I personally like short stories because they give you, well, they're satisfying to write because you get everything there in a nice little package and get it done. But of course also I like to read them. They're great for trains and planes. The proof of the pudding is really in the eating for the reading. And Penny, my friend who you all know, is going to read one of the stories, one of my favourite stories from the collection, and it's going to be Sasha's Tale. So Penny.
When the woman went out, it was a Thursday night. We were both relieved. At least a few hours without being kicked and hounded and shouted at. Of course she locked us in. We were never allowed out. We got a look at the garden through the patio windows at the back of the house, but we were never allowed out there. We often dreamed of it, you know, being out there, free to wander around. Misha, that wasn't her true name, just the one the woman insisted on calling her. I was Sasha. Misha said it was silly to want it. We didn't belong out there. We couldn't survive. We'd be taken. Although Misha wasn't clear on who would do this taking. The woman had locked us into the usual place, a large room with windows high up on one wall, too high to look out of. Of course she hadn't left us anything to eat or drink. And it was Thursday. She was always out for at least 4 hours on Thursday. I said she probably saw friends. Misha said she didn't have friends, only other people she could boss around. Weak victims. Misha said she'd like to tear her throat out and drink her blood. I said, then who would feed us? Who would keep us safe? Misha said what food she gave us hardly kept us alive. The woman was obsessed with her shape. She wanted us thin like her. After an hour or so, I was really hungry. I started to think, what if I climbed the drapes and reached the window? Maybe it was ajar. Maybe. It was very high up, but I was feeling desperate. So I jumped up and I caught hold of the curtains. Misha was horrified. Of course, the drapes gave way and fell in a pile on the floor. We sort of gave up hope then and huddled together on the sofa that filled up one end of the room. The woman would have gone mad if she caught us. We weren't allowed to be on any of the furniture. We had our place, and that was it. Anyway, we were safe for a couple of hours, or so we thought. We must have dozed off. We didn't hear the street door opening, but we heard the scream when the woman found us curled up on the sofa and saw her precious drapes piled up on the floor. She was obviously in a bad mood already. She had come back early, so maybe her evening hadn't worked out. Anyway, she fetched the stick, the one she always used, and she started to yell at us, chasing us around the room and flailing at us. Then suddenly she stopped. She dropped the stick and clutched her head, just like she did when she had one of her headaches. She teetered back and forth on her heels. Then with a sort of a loud sigh, she crumpled in a heap onto the floor. Misha and I cowered behind a chair and watched. The woman didn't move, and it didn't look like she was breathing. After a while, Misha got curious. She always had been the more inquisitive of the two of us. She slunk from behind the chair and poked at the inert form on the floor. No reaction. We looked at each other and nodded a silent agreement. The woman was dead. Then the enormity of the situation kicked in, and both of us started to tremble as thoughts whirled around our heads. This was the end of the world, of our world. We clung to each other and curled up on the floor beside the corpse, and eventually sleep took over, blotting out the horrific consequences of what had happened. We might starve, die of thirst, be blamed, be taken. When we woke up, the body of the woman was still there. It hadn't moved an inch. We both instinctively backed away from it, getting as far away as the walls of our cell would allow. Then we sat there, looking. I whimpered and Misha cuffed me. Well, Misha had got her wish. The woman was dead. But what was going to happen to us? Light came through the windows high up on the wall. Dawn was breaking. We were both starving by then and dying of thirst. There was a vase of flowers on a table, and we sipped from that. But even as we did, we knew it wouldn't last. Maybe someone would notice the woman's absence, call around and find us and the corpse. But nobody ever did come. We knew that. So why would anyone come now? Through the rest of that day and into the evening, we tried various ways to escape, jumping up to the high window, prying at the door. That didn't work, of course. The woman was always locking things. She seemed to have an obsession about closed doors. When we weren't trying to escape, we huddled together and slept, or sat, just looking at the body. We lost track of time. Maybe 2 or 3 days had passed. I know we heard the thump of mail being delivered a couple of times. By then we were famished and getting weak. We sat looking at the corpse in the grey light of another dawn. We had avoided going near it until then, but now Misha went over and poked at it. The stiffness of death had gone away. The flesh looked pallid but was flabby and yielding, like it was trying to slide off the bones. Misha backed away and looked at the dead woman, her head on one side. Then Misha said, "I'm going to do it." I knew what she meant, and my gut recoiled, and I felt the bile rise in my throat. "You can't," I whimpered. Why not? What's she to us? Then and now. Misha seemed to know what to do instinctively. She bent over the body and bit deeply at the throat, twisting and turning her head as her teeth bit deep into the soft flesh. Eventually blood seeped from the wound, and Misha released her grip and lapped at it. She looked at me. "What are you waiting for? Don't let it go to waste." I shuddered from deep inside. This was something you didn't do. This was the ultimate taboo. Drink. Drink now. I forced myself to join Misha. Forced myself to put my lips to the wound. The warm, salty liquid bathed my tongue. I'd done it. I'd gone back to some primitive state in one consuming stroke. But it was survival. It had to be done. Rest was easy. Misha tore at the flesh of the throat and we gorged. Then we slept. Over the next few days, no one came, and we gradually consumed the flesh of our erstwhile tormentor. Soon the corpse started to stink, but it didn't matter. This was survival. We drank the water in the flower vase, a sip at a time. That's what we did. Ate and slept. Soon enough we were sharing the corpse with grubs and then flies. But still it sustained us. Now though, it's nearly gone. Another meal or two. I've noticed now how Misha is looking at me. We used to sleep curled up together for comfort and warmth. Recently she seems to have withdrawn, become remote. She makes me afraid.
Thank you, Penny. Well, as you probably gather, those are stories to be read with the light on. So, that's the collection of short stories. His tale, not his tales, his cat and other strange tales. Surprised myself actually that I made some sort of pun there. Wasn't really intentional. Cat tales. There you go. Anyway, I've also got, for your delectation, a novel. And this is The Alienation of Ludovic Weiss, and another fine cover from my friend Sheila. And I think it actually gives a pretty good view of what goes on inside the novel. There's a small story attached to it. Robert Louis Stevenson apparently dreamt Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Well, I dreamt this, not in the form it really is, but I have a recurring alienation dream that's been with me for a long time. And they say, write about what you know. So I don't think I'm giving away any secret when I say, yeah, this is semi-autobiographical, although a lot of the stuff that happens didn't happen to me, mercifully. But it concerns Ludovic Weiss. Who's Ludovic Weiss? Well, he's an everyman. He's Mr. Ordinary. He's got a very nice life, has a nice wife, even his in-laws like him. which I think is a bonus. He's doing okay at work. In fact, he's doing better than okay at work. He's got a position in a corner office. Can't be bad. But then it all starts to crumble apart. And pretty soon he's gone downhill. And he's entered a dystopian world which he can't fathom out. Question is this really happening? Or is he losing his mind? And what's going to happen to him in the end? So, to give you a little flavour of this, I'm going to read you some. First of all, we start on Monday. Ludovic Weiss is on his way to work. Cancer starts unobtrusively and with no fanfare. A rogue cell divides and divides again. A spot of blood appears where it's not expected. In just such a way, the settled and comfortable life of Ludovic Weiss began to disintegrate. Nobody likes Monday morning, and Weiss was no exception. It was not that he found his employment particularly onerous. In fact, he relished his position with the compliance department. He enjoyed the status it afforded him heartily. He valued the companionship of his works colleagues, and he felt assured that his superiors held him in high regard. His workplace was like an extension to his home and his family. No one, however, wants to leave behind the pleasure and leisure of the weekend and embark on another week of attention to detail, meetings that have to be attended, and ever-present deadlines. This particular weekend had been especially pleasurable. The weather had been dry and autumnal, with just a hint of the chill that presages winter. On Saturday, Weiss had shopped with his wife. After they had lunched and then gone to the cinema, they were showing a double bill of American film noir. It was a genre with a strong appeal for Weiss. He liked the use of black and white film and found the inevitability of a disastrous ending for the main protagonist oddly satisfying, almost cathartic. Lil remarked wryly, as she always did, that this simply showed the darker side of Weiss's soul. On Sunday morning they had made love as usual. Afterwards Weiss lay beside Lil, enjoying her warmth and her soft woman smells. Weiss made breakfast and they sat together, leafing through the Sunday newspapers. Later they drove into the country and went to lunch with his parents. By contrast, this Monday morning dawned overcast and a chilly drizzle persisted throughout the morning. No city on earth, however well regulated, has managed to arrange for the morning commute to be free of stress and delay. The tram lines in the centre of Weiss's city were under repair and the traffic crawled past the worksite, churning up a slurry of yellow-brown mud. Joylessly, Weiss joined the queue of cars that stop-started on its way into the city. The compliance department occupied an office block in the central business district of the city. It was a landmark in its own right, rising several stark grey stories above the surrounding buildings, and in the centre of an extensive tarmac area devoted to car parking for the department's officials. The whole campus was protected by a high wire fence which was topped with razor wire. Weiss turned into the campus, passing through the guarded entrance gates that swung open for him at the sight of the small, square blue badge attached to his windscreen. The residue of Weiss's good humour, which he had managed to retain despite the traffic delays, ebbed away as he approached his parking space. Someone had already parked there. Weiss drew up behind the trespasser and switched off his engine. The car in his space was new and shiny and unmarked by any sign that it had been driven through the muddy streets. Weiss ran his hand along its lustrous dark green paintwork. He was seething inwardly as he looked about in a vain attempt to spy out the owner. It's a small thing, but it's the thin end of the wedge. Pretty soon, strange things start happening to Vice. His friends back away. His mistress makes up stories about why she can't see him. And he's entrusted with a file. A file that then goes missing. He goes off in pursuit of the file. He feels that he must backtrack to where it was first given to him. And this passage talks about what happens when he's looking for this file, which starts to play a bigger and bigger part in the strange and awful things that begin to happen to him. Looking down the street, Vice saw the cafe sign, which was still lit up. As he got nearer, he could see lights on in the interior, and he experienced a mild sense of relief when he saw the figures of the waitress and the owner inside. He pushed open the door and went in. As before, the waitress was engaged in setting tables for the lunchtime trade, and the owner was behind the counter. There were no customers. Back again so soon? Must have done something right. You remember me from yesterday? Of course, not that long ago. And we don't get that many customers like you. I mean, smart suit, collar and tie. You from the state? Land surveyor? Tax? Vice tried to brush away the inquiry with a smile and a curt laugh. No, nothing so grand, no. Beer and sandwich then, same as before? No, not today, but a question. Like that, is it? I'm disappointed. And the owner turned away. On second thoughts, I could do with a beer. Been a difficult day. The beer was drawn from a tap on the bar and the glass placed in front of Vice. Now, you had a question? The friendly tone had found its way back into the owner's voice. About the church, up the road there. And Vice gestured in the general direction of the building. What about it? Cooler now, guarded. It's all shut up now. Today, I mean. But is it ever used? For services? Is there a priest? Vice was sure that the shadow of a glance passed between the cafe owner and the waitress, who had come up to the counter and was standing beside him. Was it guilt? Evasion? Or maybe it was complicity? It's been shut up for years, the waitress volunteered. Never used. No priest. So, a little taste of Ludovic Vice there, which I hope's whetted your appetite. Now, as I mentioned before, I've published this myself. It's available on Amazon. Do you want to put the next slide up, please, Trevor? Thank you. But I've been fortunate. Rossiter Books have agreed to take it, and it's on sale there. If you want to go to Ledbury Books and Maps, the Three Counties Bookshop in Ledbury, and even Food for All Books in Bromyard. They all stock it. You can get it on Amazon, I've said. It's available in e-book if you prefer that version. But for one night only, you can get it here right now. And as a special deal, the books are on sale for £5. But if you buy both of them, both are yours for £9 for two. Can't say fairer than that. Now, that's it. The screen will go away, and my glamorous assistant will give you some books if you want them. Thank you all for coming. It's been a blast.
Thank you.